Welcome to Football Incorporated Podcast, a podcast created by two of the greatest football minds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Football Incorporated Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Cody Kirsten, here joined by my good friend, Patrick Arthurs. Patrick, what's up? How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Today's a great day.
Today's a great day. We're talking about football, and we're drinking vodka martinis from, they're not a sponsor, but the Arbor Company in Michigan make great weed vodka. I just picked some up. Pretty good, I must say. Anyway, kind of getting off the rails there. Sorry about the lack of podcasts. Patrick was just in Israel for a little bit. I've been working my job in management the last couple weeks, so it's been off and on. I promise during the fall we're going to get a lot more out. Currently, we're just going to be posting to SoundCloud and also to YouTube, so check us out there. So that's what we're going to do. And today, yes, there is news in the NFL. There's always news in the NFL, but, Le'Veon Bell Le'Veon Bell and Adam Gase, and them kind of not really wanting to pay that much for a quarterback and all that kind of things. I don't know how much we can talk about on that. It's just it's there. Adam Gase is the interim GM as we're recording this right now. I guess we'll see what happens. There's really not much we can say except for we're just going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. Obviously, I think obviously that situation is really a conflict situation between management and the head coach. Clearly, Adam Gase wants to pay a cheaper price for more production, while the old GM wanted to pay a little bit more of a price tag. So, again, that's one situation we're going to have to monitor as the season goes on, but we'll see how it works out with the Jets. As a Jets fan, I wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like now he's got a running back he doesn't want. But today we're going to focus on a different topic. We're going to do something that we haven't done before, and this is kind of like a new thing that we're going to try with our podcast. And, as the season is kind of halfway over, we're going to do another one before the season starts. We're going to do one at mid-season, and then we're going to do it at the end of the season. We're going to do tiered quarterbacks. So, quarterbacks that we believe are in tiers. So we're going to rank them 1 through 31. We only have 1 through 31. We went through all the teams, and we couldn't figure out which 32nd team we were missing. I don't know. But we're going to rank the top quarterbacks right now, and we're going to rank them according to what we believe. And I think the first one is not a surprise to anybody at this point. The first quarterback, definitely the best QB right now in the league. League MVP, reigning Patrick Mahomes. What do you have to say on
This again, I tend to agree with you on this. This is really no-brainer. He had a great season last year. He literally put the entire team on its back. And to be frank with you, he's the reason why they went so far and the record they had. So.
Yeah, that defense was abysmal, and he was the only solidarity in that team at that point. That far into the season, I think.
And he's a playmaker. He really is the definition of a playmaker. He's great in the pocket. He's great outside the pocket. And again, the concern I had him going into the NFL was accuracy, but he clearly defied all expectations. He was pinpoint accurate this season. So this is an easy number 1. And again, he led the league in passing yards. How can you not put it that?
Well, that's not true. Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, sorry, correction on that. But the touchdowns.
Yeah,
touchdown machine.
Yeah, he was a touchdown machine. He just exploded onto the scene. I think that surprised everybody in the NFL. It surprised me. Game 1, it was like, wow, this kid's going to be special. You watch other quarterbacks, second-year QBs coming, that were in the league. There's like. They're good, but they're not. I don't think any second-year QB has been as good as Patrick Mahomes. You can argue Russell Wilson when he won that Super Bowl, but I think if Chiefs had just two other guys on defense that were good, I think they win the Super Bowl. And you can't really blame that on Patrick Mahomes because he did everything in his power to get that team to where it is.
100% agree with you on that point. Without Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs are nothing. So. Again, I know it's kind of early on in his career. He only started 1 year, but again, if he's putting up like numbers like this close to the numbers he put up this year for the rest of his career, he's gonna be a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's no debate about it.
Oh yeah, there's no, and he will have slow years. That's just a given. You know, he's gonna have slow years. Every QB has slow years. But it's how is he going to bounce back from those slow years? I think at least once he's going to have a major injury that's going to take him for a loop and get him out of the NFL for at least a season, and we'll see how he bounces back. I think with Alex Smith on that roster and with Alex Smith leading the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs maybe win 5-6 games last year and not the way they exploded onto the scene like they did. We knew they had an explosive offense. They just needed an explosive QB to kind of, you know, get everything together and kind of cement everything in that offense. And they have that, and they're only positive moving forward at this point.
That's a great point. I think the true test is next year. Mahomes has lost a couple really good weapons. He's lost Tyreek Hill. He lost Kareem Hunt. So, again, how he responds next year, it's going to be interesting. But, again, I just think the Chiefs, even with those 2 losses, they're still going to be an explosive offense, frankly, because they have a lot of vertical threats, and that is Mahomes' strength. Throwing the ball down the field. And again, we saw it time and time again during the season on those touch passes down the field, or if he had whether that or he had to like throw it into a tight window. He did a great job of that. So I expect no less than he did from last season coming in next year.
Yeah, and I would have to 100 agree on your point. Moving in at number 2 in the quarterback rankings, I also don't think this is a surprise. 2, there's it could be Breeze, Rivers. I'm looking at overall talent, and I think even though I'm a Chicago Bears fan, as has been evident through the podcast, the time it's been around, Aaron Rodgers is definitely number 2. His arm strength, last year he threw for a little over 4,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. Those are some pretty solid numbers, and even in his off year, he still has really good numbers, which is something you explained to me just a little bit ago.
I think it's obviously if we're gonna talk about Green Bay, I mean Green Bay was awful last year, but the one bright spot was Aaron Rodgers, and time again when Rodgers has been the quarterback of the Packers, he's always been consistent. He doesn't turn the ball over. He does a lot with very little, and that was pretty evident last year. So this is an easy ranking at number 2. I could not see him slipping beyond number 2, really.
Yeah. As a Bears fan, it's been hard to watch him just shred our team up. And, coming down from a 20-point deficit and winning by 1 point. If Chicago made one more tackle, they go, they went 12-4. So they go 13-3 and get a first-round bye. And then that kick doesn't happen. And then, we see what happens from there. But I think when you talk about even some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live, you got to put Aaron Rodgers up in that, just his overall arm strength and talent. The only reason we don't have him at number 1 is just because I think Patrick Mahomes is better than him. It's only his second year, but I think just the raw talent that he had over Rodgers is significant. And yes, Rodgers did work a lot with nothing last year. That's true. And they were, he didn't carry his team on his back like Patrick Mahomes did, I don't think. He did in a sense, but also there's a lot of drama off the field too once the season ended and all that kind of stuff that kind of makes me want to push him back a little bit just because I heard Aaron Rodgers isn't really that coachable. He doesn't really like to listen to authority. He likes to do things his own way. So to me, when you're judging QBs and you want to score, people in tears, it's kind of Patrick Mahomes, great guy, MVP. You want to edge him out a little bit over Aaron Rodgers.
100% agree. I just think for the last couple of years, Rodgers has been getting a bad sort of perception of how he is as a quarterback. He's kind of turning into a bit of a quarterback diva. Now, personally, I don't think he's a quarterback diva. However, I do think that how he works with this new coaching staff is very important. But again, I think to your point on Mahomes, coming to the NFL, he was very raw. He had a lot of stuff to work on coming in, reading defenses, throwing with anticipation, but he was willing to put the work in, and the numbers paid off. And I think for Rodgers, he has to do the same thing with his coaching staff. He has to take it as a challenge to his legacy, to add on to that legacy of being a great quarterback or being the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and you can almost put Aaron Rodgers up there, and I think the top 10 quarterbacks to ever live. That's up for debate, and that's something maybe we can do at a different time. Rank the top quarterbacks, which honestly, now that I think about it, sounds like a good idea.
Definitely.
But I think Aaron Rodgers, arm strength, proven time and time and time again. He has it. He has the strength. He has the Hail Marys. He's got the deep passes. He's got the accurate passes. He's very accurate, and he holds that team together. But also he can tear that team apart, which is why I think he doesn't deserve the number one spot.
And again, I think my last point is, I think he's had great relationships with his wide receivers. But again, I think last year is pretty evident. He was really frustrated last year. Far too often, when I saw him play, the wide receivers were not on the same page as him. So whether it was like an in route or like a deep route, the communication wasn't there. But I think this is the year he needs a proven. I'm not going to say it's like a prove it year, but this is the year he needs to like show that he's not what the media thinks he is, and he can work with his new coaching staff.
Yeah, I would second that point. And we're going to move on to the third quarterback in our QB rankings listing. Number 3, Drew Brees, had an excellent season last year. 32 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, well, 39,992. So 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, and I believe it was 5 picks.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So that is sensational, especially at that age he's doing it. You know, he's proven with the Saints that he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback because he's won a Super Bowl. He's proven that he is one of the most elite QBs in the league. But, you know, if he stacks up against Rodgers and Mahomes, I think you got to put him in 3. He had a great season last year, no doubt. And he could have been an MVP a couple times. And I think he's gotten snubbed a couple times. But also, I believe 3 is the correct ranking for him in this list. I believe Aaron Rodgers and both Patrick Mahomes are better than him. And, you know, you maybe can put Tom Brady at 3. We actually have him at 4. We'll talk about him in a second. But if you're going to encompass his overall talent, accuracy, and all that stuff compared to the other QBs we have listed here, I believe 3 is a good fit. I don't think he's number 1. I think Aaron Rodgers is 2. And then I think Drew Brees is 3. He has had a great career, and I can see him playing for 4 more years. I think he wins one more Super Bowl and then retires, in my opinion. They were close the last 2 years. But he's been a consistent force in that offense for the last several years. And, you know, I think he is, again, one of the greatest QBs of all time. And, you know, 32-5 is pretty good, but I think the other QBs, Aaron Rodgers has more raw talent, and Mahomes just has, you know, the thing to him. So Brees is 3. I think that's a pretty fair listing, and I think that's pretty accurate in what we saw last year.
I cannot disagree with you on that. My thing, and here's my thing I love about Brees. He's the definition of an efficient quarterback. He makes great decisions. He never forces the ball when it's not there. He plays well in the Saints system. And obviously, and I think he's changed the way quarterbacks play. We look at the quarterback landscape now. It's completely changed because of Drew Brees and his success. And we're going to look at Russell Wilson a little later in this list. But if it's not for Drew Brees, Russell Wilson may never get a shot in the NFL. But I think with him, again, he's accurate. He does all the things you want in a quarterback. Now, obviously, he doesn't have the strongest arm. But again, I think we can throw arm strength out because he knows how to read defenses. And time again, when it came to making a big throw, he threw the ball accurately. He threw with anticipation. Overall, and I agree, this is just the perfect ranking for Drew Brees.
All right, we're going to move on to number 4, and that is probably the greatest QB of all time to live, Tom Brady. He has the stats. He has the record. Last year was an off year. We want to encompass for the veterans, we want to encompass their entire career, but we also, it's hard to do when there's also rookies that are coming in the league and we're trying to rank them like how we are, or QBs who have only played 1 year or 2 years, something like that. But I think last year, Tom Brady, he had a good season. Last year he went 29 touchdowns, 11 picks, 3,500 yards. You know, not bad, but he won another Super Bowl. So, you know, you can't argue with the man who has 6 rings. Yeah, he had a little bit of an off year, and he's going to be 42 entering this next season, which may be a cause for concern, but honestly, I don't really think so. He's going to have some weapons around him now. Now in N'Keal Harry. And I think he has another great season, but those aren't wow factor numbers, to be honest. Those are like Mitch Trubisky numbers, actually. They're pretty close to his numbers from last year. But you also have to encompass Tom Brady's career in his 6 Super Bowl rings. If he had a little bit of a better season, I would have put him at 1. But I think, as we've been going through the list, I think it's a pretty fair assessment to put him at number 4 from last year. We're not doing all-time greats. We're doing last year QBs, and also we're encompassing careers a little bit into a factor. So to be honest with you, rookies have a disadvantage because they haven't played in the NFL. And someone like Tom Brady, the only reason we put Mahomes as 1 is because he had an insane wow factor, something that no one has ever seen before. And then the other quarterbacks on this list that we've listed have had pretty solid careers, and I think we want to incorporate last year as well as their career. So I think Tom Brady last year struggled. He did. That's an honest thing he did. But he did have a good chunk of yards. He threw a little bit more picks than I think he wanted to, and had a little less touchdowns. But he has the records. He has the stats. He has the 6 rings. So I think, 4 is a good placement. And, you can buffer around maybe 4 or 3, but I think that's a good spot for him.
I agree with you. And again, I think if we're having the discussion like who's the greatest of all time, yes, Brady is definitely up there. There's an argument for being number 1. I can agree with that. And then for Brady, I guess when it comes down, he's a winner. And if you look at the circumstances he's played with in New England, he's had some teams where when you look at the outside, you have no talent at wide receiver, yet he's still won Super Bowls. But you look at other teams when you have like Randy Moss and he's throwing like 50 touchdowns, that's great. This just shows like he's versatile. He can win with whatever talent's on the roster. And I think that's what's really missing in the modern NFL is that in today's modern NFL, you build around your quarterback, you spend a lot on premium players on the outside. The Patriots do the opposite. They find players at a cheap price, and they plug and play players that are gonna fit their system. And with Brady, clearly he's one with less talent in his career, and overall just a proven winner. You cannot take the value of winning. As you said, 6 Super Bowl championships, different rosters throughout the years. Just a great player.
Yeah, and I think he's number 4 from last year as we move on in our tier list. There's no doubt he is a great quarterback. That's not in the doubt. But I think when you encompass last year, I think he does move down a couple spots. Based on that, he struggled last year.
He's not perfect, obviously, and I think this rating kind of shows that because Mahomes has the wow factor, but Brady has the winning track record.
Okay, moving on to the number 5 quarterback. We believe the best of the quarterbacks right now in the league is Big Ben Roethlisberger, and I think that's pretty evident. Through his career, he's been solid. He's been there. He has 2 Super Bowl rings, correct?
Yes.
1. Yeah, he has 2 Super Bowl rings. Last year, he led the league in passing. He didn't have super standout jump at you stats. 34 touchdowns, 16 picks. That's like a 2-to-1 ratio. For an elite QB like Big Ben, that's kind of concerning. But he did have 5,000 passing yards, which beat the MVP. And when you throw more yards, you tend to throw more picks. But also, when you throw that many yards, you should at least have 40 touchdowns. So, I'm kind of conflicted by these stats here.
I mean, he's still a good quarterback. Obviously, I think my biggest takeaway from looking at Big Ben's stats in the context of how he's playing, it's obviously because he's a gunslinger, but I still think he makes enough great throws to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. So, the justification number 5 is there. But again, I think he is declining a little bit. And obviously that just happens when you get older as a quarterback.
Yeah, for certain. He's been there. He's been productive. Is he a QB diva? I don't know. He lost Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown wanted to leave because of him. So that's concerning, which is, I think, kind of why we had to bump him down a little bit. But when you throw the ball around like that, when you gunsling it, when you get that many yards, there's a case to be made that you should be the number 5 quarterback. And he has 2 rings under him because of, he had a good defense, but also he was a good QB, unlike some other quarterbacks, Eli Manning.
But again, I think at the end of the day, Big Ben is a great quarterback, and again, I think getting Le'Veon Bell signing and trading Antonio Brown, it's only going to help the locker room, and I just think it's going to help the team chemistry overall.
Yeah, and I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of in a weird spot right now. I feel like they're in rebuild mode, but the QB's old, so that's not really rebuild mode for me. So anyway, I think number 5, Ben Roethlisberger, I think that's a pretty justified spot for him. All right, we're going to move on to number 6, Russell Wilson. He had 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, as well as, I believe, let me look this up here. 3,400 yards. So QBR 65.6, not real great. That's 11th in the league. Touchdowns are tied for 3rd, so that's pretty good. Low year for touchdowns last year. And then 18th in passing yards. So he's been a consistent and overall great football player for the Seattle Seahawks and has been carrying the team for several years.
I agree. I expect those numbers to increase next year. Because, I mean, the Seahawks have made it very clear that they're changing their offensive mindset when it comes to how the offense is going to be run. It used to be ground and pound, run the ball, play action, but now it's going to be air it out, let Russell Wilson win games. And I just think we as football fans should expect more from Russell Wilson than last year. Clearly, based on the way the Seahawks are going.
And his contract as well. He said he was going to get all that money, so let's let him prove that money. He has a Super Bowl ring, went to another one, lost because of a play call, I believe. But, yeah, I think overall, just watching him play last year, you could see he had it. He has it, and he's a franchise QB, and, I think 6 is a great spot for him.
Exactly. 100% agree.
Number 7, Phillip Rivers. What do you think? I'll let you take this one.
For Phillip Rivers, I think he's been pretty consistent throughout his career. And I think if we're looking at the stats from last year, we clearly see that he had over 4,000 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I'm a fan of Phillip Rivers. I think throughout his career, he's been very consistent. I'm not saying he's like a top. I'm not saying he's never been like the best quarterback in the league, but I think there's a lot of offensive weapons on the Chargers, and the way they're playing football with their new head coach, that they've had the last couple of years, in Anthony Lynn, it's air the ball out, spread the field, give it to your weapons. That's a great formula for Phillip Rivers, and I think overall, I think the way he played last year, he's only going to get better next year. The more you play an offensive system, and especially Anthony Lynn's offensive system with his offensive coordinator, I think this is a great spot for him for the rankings.
I would totally agree with you on that. I think good spot for him. He's proven consistency. That's the one thing we talk about with QBs is consistency. So Breeze is so good, Rodgers is so good, Brady's so good, and now Phillip Rivers has proven his consistency with the team. And I think that's why he's at this spot that he is.
And I will say the biggest knock on why he's not higher, Phillip Rivers does not win the big game in the playoffs. Time and time again, he has struggled to win the big game. But in the regular season, he's great. But in the postseason, when you need to win the big game, he's kind of fallen short. But again, it's not all his fault. Some years he's had a bad defense. Some years the supporting cast doesn't step up. Some years he's struggled personally. But if he plays well in the postseason, he can go up the rankings for sure. No doubt.
Number 8 in our list is going to have to be Matt Ryan. Although the Falcons didn't do that well last year. Matt Ryan did exceptional. He threw for almost 5,000 yards, which is really good. That's 3rd in the league. Then he also had 35 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a completion percent of almost 70. That's great numbers. Those are good things, but he can't win the big game. That's been proven in the Super Bowl when they lost to the Patriots. He can't win the big game. And again, that's another knock on him. But his stats, 4,924 yards, 35 and 7. Those are great numbers. Those are elite level numbers. But as we've seen in the other quarterbacks that we've listed, a lot of them have won the big game. A lot of them have carried teams on their back. Matt Ryan's good, and he's proven that he's good, which is why we put him at number 8. And he's a top 10 quarterback, no doubt. But, we knock him back a little bit because he can't win the big games that the Falcons would want him to.
He really fits a motto of consistency. Every single game, he plays every week in the regular season. You can count on him to throw over 300 passing yards. at least 2 touchdowns every game. He's proven that. And again, I think in order for him to cement his legacy as a top 5 quarterback and potential rankings down the road, he's going to have to win in the playoffs. And again, that's something that's going to pop up quite a bit in our rankings here, winning the playoffs, and I think Matt Ryan is no exception to this.
Yeah, I would agree. He's a good quarterback, deserves that spot. We'll move on to number 9, Andrew Luck. 4,593 yards, 39 touchdowns, 15 picks. Coming off that brutal shoulder surgery, he's proven, again, he's one of the elite talents in the league.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. Andrew Luck, he has thrived under Frank Reich's system. And clearly, the Colts made the effort to build that offensive line back up. And again, I think with that offensive line being rebuilt, Andrew Luck was more confident last year. And again, another point I also want to make here is that Andrew Luck got the ball out of his hands quicker. That's one of the things that he really struggled with early on in his career. He always wanted to make the big play consistently, the home run shot down the field, the big plays. But again, I think he took a step back and realized, you know what? It's okay to check the ball down. It's okay to maybe not always wait 5 seconds in the pocket to take a big hit on his shoulder. So he changed the way he played, and look, it's showing these rankings, and I think he's only going to get better as time goes on under the system.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Coming off that shoulder injury, coming off that, he had a great season. Almost could have been an MVP candidate. But, again, top 10. Number 9, I think he's a top 10 quarterback, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me on that. Played great last year, played great all the years he was healthy. I think he's still going to play great going forward. He's a franchise QB, and he's proven that. He's proven to put the team on his back, which is why we put him at number 9.
Absolutely.
And number 10, we're going to go with Matthew Stafford. Patrick,
Yes.
I want you to talk a little bit more about this because you're a Lions fan. You know a little bit more about him. I watch him play on Sundays, and you know more about him. But I think 10 is warranted here. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy. I think Matthew Stafford deserves this ranking. Throughout his time with the Detroit Lions, they've always been a pass-happy offense. And oftentimes, he's had to win the games with his arm. And it shows like the fourth quarter comebacks. When the Lions need a comeback, they rely upon Stafford. And I just think, overall, I think with the new regime coming in, with Bob Quinn being that new general manager for the last couple of years, he's building up this offense. The sky's the limit for Stafford. And again, when they drafted him number 1 overall in, I believe it was 2009, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but he's phenomenal. Arm strength, the deep ball. He's really learned how to spread the wealth amongst the football field. And that philosophy's changed ever since he lost Calvin Johnson. So I think the sky's the limit for Stafford. He's only going to get better.
And I think as we look at his career, last year he had an off year. That's no doubt. He went 21-11. That's not good. But if you look at the year before that, he went 29-10, 24 and I'm sorry, I'm going to look here. 24-10, 32-13, 22-12, 29-19. And then he had his great year in 2011, 41-16. So he has the arm strength. And it's no doubt, I don't think anyone's going to argue about it. He has the accuracy. He has the arm strength. He has the talent, which is why we put him at 10. And he's a great quarterback. The Lions just need to figure out a way to build something around him after Calvin Johnson, which kills me, but not really because I'm a Bears fan. So, but it's like the Lions have it. He's in his prime. Do something right now or you're going to lose him.
It's frustrating. I love Detroit. And again, the past, and again, I'm not going to call a certain GM here, but Matt Millen, previous regimes here of the Detroit Lions have failed to build a roster. And I think with Matthew Stafford, it is just important for the Lions, put weapons around him. And know what that means? You know what it means, like, for future drafts? Building weapons that fit your system. Don't just draft a player because they're good. Draft a player because it fits their system and they're going to help your quarterback. And again, it's a frustrating thing, but Matthew Stafford has great potential. The Lions just need to help him unleash that potential to be a great quarterback.
Yeah, everything you said there, that's right. I don't disagree with that. Okay, so we got our top 10 out of the way. Those are all high-tier quarterbacks. Whether you want to put them in like a tier 1 or a tier 2, that's something for debate. You can kind of mix and mingle them. But I think top 10 right there, those are your 10 best quarterbacks in the league right now. People may differ. For the 4 of you who are listening to this, you may differ with our opinion, and you may have other things to say. But I think those are top 10, and those are all warranted top 10 arguments that we do. So now we're going to move on to the next 10. Number 11 with Cam Newton. Last year wasn't his best year. He went 24-13, but he has played exceptional for Carolina. He has a great arm. He has great accuracy. He can run the ball. He can throw it really well, and that's why we put him at number 11.
I just want Cam, for me personally, I want Cam Newton to change his play style just a little bit. I don't mind him running a little bit, but again, that should not be the prominent role of him. I think he should avoid unnecessary hits when he doesn't have to take them. That's just my personal take on this. And I think the Carolina Panthers should make, and again, they've made that conceded effort to protect him, to ensure that he can sit back in the pocket comfortably, not worry about taking hits. But again, going into the league, he was a physical specimen going into the league. And again, I think for many years he's put Carolina on his back. So this is a justifiable ranking. So
no one's going to argue he's not a great quarterback. Top 15 for sure. Whether you want to put him in top 10 or closer to 14, I mean, that's kind of up for you to decide, but we believe he's number 11. So moving number 12, this quarterback, Kirk Cousins, could be a top 10. We knocked him back a little bit. I mean, look, he had 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 3-to-1 ratio, and his completion percent was over 70%. That's insanely good. We dropped him this far. I mean, that's warranted top 5. Yeah. But we dropped him this far because he fails to win big games.
Yes, that is one theme that is shown in our rankings. You have to win the big game. And frankly, when the Vikings needed to win one game to make the playoffs, Kirk Cousins did not drive his team to make the playoffs. That's the simple fact of the matter. Yes, the stats are very impressive. I mean, you're throwing for over 4,000 passing yards, you said before, and 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. That's great. But at the end of the day, a fan base is only happy if you're winning the big game, you're making the playoffs every year, and you're Super Bowl contenders. And again, the Vikings had the belief that he was the missing piece, so that's why he's down a little bit in our rankings than what we had him at.
Yeah, we know our family actually knows Kirk Cousins. He went to like the same church we did a long time ago, and he actually went to Holland Christian High School. None of us went to Holland Christian High School, but we live just a few minutes away from Holland Christian High School. So he's a Hollander. He's from around this area, actually, where we live, and we support everything he does. But when you got to knock a player, you got to knock a player. Where he's at in the rankings, I think is accurate, and I think he is one of the better. He's way better than RG3 will ever be, to be honest.
That's true.
But you got to win the big games, big fella. You can't just toss around a whole bunch of yards, have great stats, but not win big games. You miss the playoffs. Like, you can't do that, And so they're going to build around him, and I think next year he's going to have a blowout year.
And I think for the Vikings, for him to justify the $84 million contract guaranteed, the guarantees he got, he's going to have to bring him to a Super Bowl. There's no question about it. The Minnesota Vikings fans deserve better than what they got last year. No doubt in my mind. I'd be frustrated, and he could be top 10. He could be top 5 next year. You never know. At the end of the season, we'll see, but great talent, great potential. We'll see where he goes after that.
Yeah, so after Kirk Cousins was 12. So 13 is Deshaun Watson. He had a good year. He completed 68.3%. They went 11, and he went 11-5. 26 touchdowns, 9 picks. That's solid. Threw for a little over 4,100 yards. Solid quarterback, and right kind of in the middle of the pack. He's good, but he needs to prove himself.
My biggest complaint about Watson, and biggest knock, is far too often I think he holds on the ball a little too long. He doesn't go through his reads fast enough in some situations. But again, I think last year he got better from his rookie year, and that's important for the Texans. it's showing that he's willing to put the work in. He's willing to work hard to develop that relationship with his wide receivers. So, I mean, the sky's the limit on him. And again, it showed last year. He made a lot of his teammates better. And that is one thing you want in a franchise quarterback. Someone who's going to make that roster look really good. And time again, he really did that in a lot of situations.
Yeah. So 13, we got Deshaun Watson. 14, Carson Wentz. Biggest knock on him is the injury bug, but he almost completed 70% of his passes, 69.6, 21-7 before he got injured. His QB record was not that good. It was 5-6, but he has pretty good stats, and he's really accurate. And again, middle of the pack, we put him at 14. You know, he's good, but he's not great.
When healthy, he is easily a top 5 quarterback. I can just I can think of the year when he's healthy. He's very good. He's a gunslinger. That's what I like about Carson Wentz. He's a gunslinger. He takes the risks. He takes a lot of risks downfield.
And I think with Deshaun Jackson coming back to the Eagles,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's going to be really good next year, I think.
That is going to be his number 1 wide receiver next year. Because I think last year that vertical threat was missing. Because when I look at his year when he was really well, you had Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith was that deep ball threat. And with Deshaun Jackson, I think it's a clear upgrade. It's a clear upgrade for him to have a great deep ball threat. That's what makes the Eagle offense go. They're a play action team. They take chances down the field. So I think this rating kind of justifies the year he had last year.
Yeah, and this next one coming in at number 15 might surprise some people because we haven't said his name yet. Jared Goff, 15. You know, he had a good season: 32-12, 4,600 yards, completion percent 65%, average. When I hear Jared Goff, I think pretty good. I think above average. But he had a couple games where, against Chicago, he threw a ton of picks. When he played against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, he didn't play very well. So those 2 games, I think, in our opinions, kind of knocked him back a little bit. He has the potential to be great, but he also plays really awful at sometimes. And he has the stats, but also he didn't know how to throw a ball 2 years ago. So as we put career in perspective, he's only been good for 2 years, and he's been in the league since 2016. He didn't know how to throw a ball his rookie year, which is a knock on him. And then when McVay comes, he's really well. I don't know. I just think Jared Goff can't win big games right now, and I know we said that about a lot of QBs, but in that Super Bowl, you got to score. When you play Chicago Bears, I mean, they won, right? They won one of the games, but yeah. So they won against Jared. He played super good against the KC Chiefs. They had no defense, but when he starts to play against a top 10 defense, he looks really bad. And Kansas City, he looks great. Chicago looks awful. Plays against New England looks awful because they're top 10 defenses.
In my opinion on this, in the Super Bowl, I'm going to be really frank about this. He played like a system quarterback, and that's what drove me crazy in that game. Far too often, again, the Rams are a play-action team, so they're run-heavy. So when they're running the ball well, Jared Goff plays well. But they weren't running the ball well in the Super Bowl. And guess what? It cost them. Jared Goff, out of all those play-action plays, he was throwing to people because that's what he's used to. Wide-open wide receivers all the time. But he didn't go through his reads. He wasn't taking chances downfield. Because when you're trying to win a big game, you have to take a risk. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. That's what defines the great quarterbacks, and Goff didn't really play like that.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to number 16, Nick Foles. What are you thinking about? We put him ahead of Baker Mayfield, Mitch Trubisky. I think last year he went 4-1, threw for 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's played good when he's needed to play good. He's won the big games, which is why I think we put Mitch Trubisky and Baker Mayfield back on him. Baker Mayfield's had 1 season. Looked great, okay? Nick Foles has won a lot of big games, okay? And Baker Mayfield's a rookie. He was a rookie. We'll see how he does in a second. He played great. Okay, there's no lie he played great. but I think Nick Foles has the better resume at this point, has a Super Bowl ring and a Super Bowl MVP. So I think that's why I got to put him at 16. He's played good. He has decent stats. I mean, not amazing. And we also think he won't do that well in Jacksonville. But I think right now you got to put him, especially since he moved teams and people are taking a big chance on him, you got to put him at 16 above, the rookies.
I agree with you. He wins big games when he has to. But I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I'm a little more optimistic about the Nick Foles to Jacksonville situation than you might seem. My belief is that they brought in their quarterbacks coach from Philadelphia and the offense coordinator last year from Minnesota to be the offensive coordinator. So it gives me a little more comfort. But again, it's kind of like, do we trust Nick Foles to be a 16-game starter, lead team to the playoffs, or is he simply one of those players where he comes off the bench on a high, the defenses don't know what he's going to do, and he plays well? So that's a question that's going to be determined this season.
Yeah, I would agree with you. 17, Baker Mayfield. Great season. Great rookie season, but he's a rookie. That's all I have to say, really, is he's a rookie. You can't put him that hard. 27-14, 3,700 yards. 60. That's the thing, is his completion percent, 63.8. There's QBs that have better than that. He threw for a decent amount of yards. On this Pro Football Reference, they have him as a play index at a 6. I don't know. I think he's a top 20 QB, but I guess we'll have to see where he goes. That's all I'm going to say.
I love his instincts as a football player. He is the true definition of a football player, in my opinion. He has the competitive instincts. He's a gunslinger. He takes chances. I guess he makes teammates around him better. That's what I love about Baker Mayfield. Guess what? Like, when you're trying to win a big game, and I get the Browns were not in playoff contention. They fell out, obviously, because of like different teams winning and so on and so forth, and their early struggles. But he rallied that team. And I think next year it's only going to get better because Freddie Kitchens, his offensive coordinator from last year, is now the head coach. More confidence. Just overall, Browns fans should expect a lot from Baker Mayfield next year. No doubt.
Yeah, I think every quarterback we've had is justified at its position. I think this one is as well. Okay, we're going to move on. Right after Baker Mayfield comes my boy, number 10 for the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky. Had a good season. Last year he didn't know how to throw a football in 2017, and now he looks solid under Matt Nagy. Really, really good. Went 24-12, missed a couple games. Has a decent completion, 66 by, top 20. I think he is top 20. I think he's better than the last, 12 as we're going to get into, and I think he's justified in that position. Looks good, plays well. I think he'll only grow and get better with time.
My whole knock on Trubisky as a quarterback is consistency. Far too often, he missed throws that he should have made. That is just, again, I think it's a small thing. It's a small thing that he can work on, is like his footwork, throwing a little bit more with anticipation, but he's on the right track for being a really great quarterback. And I think with Matt Nagy, that only helps him out for the long term.
Yeah, we're going to move on so this podcast isn't super long. We're going to move on to number 19, Andy Dalton, the Red Ripper. He's average. That's all I'm going to say. He's average, plays average.
Yeah,
pretty average.
middle of the pack quarterback. He's not going to win you like a playoff game. Yeah, he's not going to lose you, he's not going to cause you to lose a ton of games. But again, average throughout his whole career.
Yeah, as I'm reading his stats right now, is pretty average. He's thrown for over 4,000 yards a few times. His best touchdown season was 33. Average. That's why we put him where he is. He's played good at times. He's played crappy at other times. So that's where we're going to leave the Red Ripper, I think, at number 19. It's a pretty justified spot for him. 19th best QB. I don't think anybody would really argue with this.
Yeah, shout out to the Bengals fans. I know you feel Cincinnati fans.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about Jameis Winston. Now, he's a bit of a unique player. He airmails it like it's UPS. Okay, he throws a lot of yards. All right, but he throws a ton of picks and takes risks that make you scratch your head. So that's why we put him at 20. Last season, 19 and 14. Pretty bad season. Not even 3,000 yards. He got benched and replaced with Fats Magic. But overall in his career, he's thrown for a solid chunk of yards. Since he went in the league with 2015, 4,000 yards, 3,500 yards, 22, 15, 28, and 18. His touchdown to interception ratio has never been good, but he's been needing to throw a lot because he doesn't have a solid running back. That defense sucks. So we'll see what happens under the new coach, under Bruce Arians, and I think he'll be decently good next year. I think he can move his way into the top 15, even top 10 if he does really, really well. But I think the knock on him is too many risks and too many interceptions.
I agree. I just think too many turnovers. Turnovers kill a team's vibe when you're trying to win games, and I just think he needs to cut down turnovers. He's talented, I don't deny that, but if he cuts down turnovers, he'll be good. If he doesn't, he'll be out of a job next year. Mark my words.
Yeah, okay, so number 21, I think people are going to get mad at this for putting Jameis Winston over him, but you got to go with Marcus Mariota at 21. Last season, 11 touchdowns, 8 picks. He did okay, but nothing to flash out of your screen.
Too injury prone. I think far too many injuries. He's a good player. He just needs to stay healthy. Once we see a full year of him, 16 games, then I think we can make a definitive judgment on whether or not he can go up on our ranking list. Now, Tennessee fans may want to see him higher, but we need to see a full year where he's actually healthy and contributing. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, 22, Jimmy G.
Yes, Jimmy G.
That's controversial. I think people have him higher. People have him lower. You don't have a lot to go off him. You only have a few games to base him. That's why we have him down this low, is because you only have a few games. When he started for San Francisco, he won 5 games straight, and then he lost a few and then got hurt and was out all last year. You can't go a lot of him. I think he has a good potential. I think he has a Tom Brady-esque kind of feel to him, but you can't base a lot off what he has so far. So that's why you have to put him at 22, right?
Yeah, he's a boomer bust player, in my view. If he has a great year next year, he's going to jump up boards on rankings like crazy. But again, I agree with you. We need to see a full sample size before I can give a definitive judgment on whether or not he could be top 10 or top 15.
Yeah. So we'll have to see with Jimmy G. 23, Joe Flacco, average. I'm not much to say about him, to be honest.
No,
pretty average.
His best year really was in Baltimore in the Super Bowl run. That's really it. That's all I can really think of. But other than that,
he hasn't played that good. He won't be that good in Denver. All right, 24, Derek Carr. Good, not great. I think he's warranted and justified at this position. He played like trash last year.
I think the positive sign is they're building a really good offense around him. But again, I think he needs to play better than he did last year. Otherwise, the Raiders are going to be looking at another quarterback next year, frankly.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. All right, 25, we got Sam Darnold. Played okay, but is a rookie. Excuse me, I'm burping. Was a rookie. Wasn't that good. I mean, he has a lot of potential, but you got to place him where you got to place him. So 26 then. Lamar Jackson. Horrible accuracy. Not that great, can only run. That's all I'm going to say. I honestly don't see Baltimore doing good with him.
Honestly, there's flashes where he's really accurate, but I think far too often he's a little erratic on his accuracy. But again, if he can fix his accuracy, maybe get up to 63% on his completion percentage and be somewhat of a threat passing against defenses, Baltimore's going to be crazy good. Really good next year, but if he doesn't fix that, it's going to be a long year for the Ravens.
Yeah. 27, Josh Allen. Again, a rookie. Not that good. I mean, I think he has potential to be good, but seen flashes of brilliance, seen flashes of trash. But he's a rookie, so you got to put him kind of back this far. 28, Eli Manning. Horrible quarterback. Don't even want to talk about him.
Can I say this right now? He is the king of checkdowns. My goodness. Literally, every game I watch him, he does 100 checkdowns.
Yeah.
Seriously.
He can't throw. All right. Yeah. 28, Eli Manning sucks. 29, but he has a resume.
That is true. He has
a resume, which is why I'm putting him over Kyler Murray
It's out of respect,
at
man.
29.
Only out of respect.
29, Kyler Murray coming in. I honestly don't think he's going to be that good. That's me. I think he's going to fail with the Cardinals, play 3 years, and be a backup.
Honestly, I have mixed opinions on Kyler Murray. On the other hand, it could work out because he fits Cliff Kingsbury's offense perfectly. On the other hand, the air raid offense is simply going to fail, much how Chip Kelly's offense failed the NFL.
Yeah. And the only reason I'm putting Kyler Murray above Dwayne Haskins right now is, one, Kyler Murray's going to start, and he's a number 1 overall pick. So I'm giving him benefit of the doubt over Dwayne Haskins because there's still a QB battle kind of going on in Washington. So I give Murray the edge over him. And then the person replaced, Josh Rosen at 30. He was really good at UCLA, but you got to build around him, man. They kind of ditched him out, threw him under the bus, stomped all over him like he was a piece of trash, and replaced him with a quarterback who I think is going to be worse than him. I think he's going to be pretty good with the Dolphins. Is that just me, or am I crazy?
That's not a crazy sentiment. I tend to think that Josh Rosen lost confidence in playing for Arizona. I mean, it's like, seriously, if you're a quarterback, you're playing behind a trash-ola offensive line. You lose your best. You literally lose your best offensive weapon in David Johnson. Seriously, how can you play well? And again, like, he was very hesitant when watching him play. But again, I think with Miami, it's a fresh start, a new coaching staff, a new offensive coordinator. Give him a second chance. This is make it or break it year by far.
Yeah, and I think people are going to get mad at us for putting this player where he is. 31, Dwayne Haskins.
Seriously, this is a good ranking.
I don't know how well he'll do. He has a big arm. I see flashes of Winston in him. People are like, oh, he went 50-2 or whatever the frick his numbers were. See, watch him play in the NFL. Let's watch him play in the NFL, okay? Before we start judging, I think Kyler Murray is more NFL ready, especially going to Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's more NFL ready, to be honest. That's why I put him ahead. I think Dwayne Haskins has 2 or 3 years to learn, which is why I put him this far back. I mean, is that nuts?
You never know. This is kind of a crazy situation, but when Russell Wilson came into the league, I know we mentioned him earlier, but he beat up Matt Flynn for the quarterback job. There's a very real possibility that Haskins impresses the coaching staff enough for him to start. So don't be surprised if he starts right away.
Yeah, and I could see him being kind of bottom of the barrel QB. Now, we'll have to see where it goes. I could be totally wrong, or we could be totally right.
And again, I'll say this one more thing. He's a boomer bust quarterback. He could be an ultra efficient quarterback at Ohio State because he did play in the West Coast offense. He's very good at reading defenses. Or again, he could fail because he takes too many chances downfield, much how Jameis, or I don't want to bring this up, but Jamarcus Russell did while playing the NFL. So that's kind of a low end. So I don't want that to happen for him, but I wish him the best for his career.
Yeah, me too. And we're just going to run through 32, Colt McCoy. Yeah. And then 33, the worst quarterback who might be able to start is Ryan Fitzmagic. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm sorry. Sucks. And with that being said, and with Ryan Fitzpatrick being the last quarterback, if you disagree with our picks, that sucks. And if you agree with them, that's cool. But for us here at Football Inc., find us on Twitter. Search us out, football, ftball_inc. Be on YouTube, SoundCloud, and then when fall comes around, we'll be back on Spotify, Apple Music, and all the major platforms. With that being said, we are out. Thank you for listening so much to us, and have a good night.